Hi everyone and welcome back to Chess for Charity. In this position, the black queen is giving check to the white king. It's white to move, clearly, and you have to find the best continuation. So at the moment there are three legal moves. There's the rook block, the queen block, and the king escape to h2. So I want you to think about all three of these and see if you can find the winning sequence for white and why it's the winning sequence. Okay, so let's start with the most obvious move, which is king h2. I'm sure that's one that I'd play in a blitz game without even thinking about it. After queen h7, you kind of notice that there's a perpetual check happening. If I return to g1, then this perpetual check will go back and forth, right? And if I go up the board, I actually will lose because this rook is holding this and the queen is holding all of these. So I can't go up the board. So if I go back, the thought is this is just going to be a draw, right? Well, yeah, but I mentioned those other moves, right? You have a rook move and a queen move. And that move might seem a little wild at first because if I give up a rook, for example, they just take it. And then I go back. And now what? Well, here's the thing. This is exactly the sequence you have to consider. What happens if the queen blocks? What happens if the rook blocks, and what are the consequences of that move? So, just for example, if the queen blocks and you take, I move away. So what is white actually threatening in this position? There's a lot of coordination here, and even I'm threatening the rook, but it's not really a big deal because I can give you check, and after the king runs to g1, I don't have to give you check here if I want, but notice there's not really a big threat here. If I wanted to, I can go right here and trade everything off and I'd be fine. So if knight takes f8, I can take here and I'm going to be winning this as black, right? So instead of the queen interposing on d1, what if the rook interposes? What if you give up a full rook here? Queen takes c1, and now this pawn is actually in the way because currently black is looking at checkmate here, not with the queen, checkmate on g7. They're very scared of that move right now. So what do they do to prevent it? Well, they could prevent it by, giving up their queen, like on f4. That's not how a human plays. That's how a computer plays. But maybe you think something like this. Maybe that will block the sight of g7. Sure, it will for a moment, but after check and king h7, how are you going to guard against mate here? I don't see a good answer. Again, you can give the queen up, and this would be a check, so I have to take it, and then this is completely fine, right? There's no worry about this pawn running down the board. I have more than enough time to get there, right? Just for example, here, I would go this way and then just hold that square. Put my knight there and hold it. Put this king in the middle of the board and walk these pawns up. Okay, so it turns out after I give up the rook, amazingly, after you sacrifice the rook on c1, there really isn't a good place. Here it is. There really isn't a good place for the queen to go or the rook to go to prevent this mate on g7. If the queen goes somewhere like c7, you just take it with either piece. If it goes to somewhere like f4, you just take it. I already mentioned the rook move. What else really is there? The computer wants to give up the queen in the corner, but that's not a good move, clearly. So it's not like there's any other option. So what is the moral of the story? The moral of the story is even when something looks like a draw, consider the outrageous alternatives. This looks like an outrageous move. Rook c1 looks crazy at first glance. You're giving up your rook for nothing. But notice that the square on c1 as a pivot square is a lot different, and there are fewer pieces than this one. There are fewer squares than b1. From b1, I can see all of these squares. But from c1, I can only see these ones. Fascinating, right? But yeah, that is it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed that puzzle. I think it's a kind of instructive puzzle about being able to sacrifice strategically. But if you enjoyed it, be sure to like the content. I put new videos out all the time, and my goal is just to help charity and to spread the game of chess, so every subscriber helps me out a lot. Thank you all so much. Bye.